Hello, welcome in. It's November 3rd, and it's a Sunday edition of Always College Football. I'm your host, Greg McElroy, and we appreciate you being here. We know that we're coming to you a little later than usual here on a Sunday. We like to do this on Sunday mornings where it's kind of streaming consciousness, a little bit of reaction, usually jet lagged as can be coming back from the game. I was fortunate enough to be in the building last night in Columbia, South Carolina, where Texas A&M fell at the hands of the South Carolina Gamecocks, and traveling back from Columbia, South Carolina. A little bit tricky this morning. So for those of you that navigated through the Atlanta airport, you know what I'm talking about. It was disastrous, to say the least. The trains were down. You couldn't even walk underneath. It was so packed. Finally, it got to the point where it's like, all right, I guess I'm driving from Atlanta to Birmingham. I will say this though, Kubiak, you guys always hear me shout out Mark Kubiak. He was looking for flights because I missed my connection because you couldn't get from one gate to the next. He was looking at flights and he did find one for me at 10:55. And that was really kind of him, except the problem was it was 10:55 p.m. And then there was also another 10:55, but it was on Monday the 4th. So appreciate the effort, Coobs, trying to get me back home. But staying in Atlanta airport for another 12 hours was not something I was super excited about. But I digress. My travel day was not nearly as disastrous as some of the performances that we saw yesterday. But it did lead to a pretty entertaining day of college football. 7 ranked teams go down. 4 of those 7 ranked teams fell to unranked teams. So a lot of very intriguing parity that we've seen infiltrate the sport. And it doesn't seem like it's slowing down, does it? Because there were trap game scenarios yesterday. But we have to kind of separate trap games from maybe a slight reversion to the mean. And I'll explain why here in just a little bit. And we'll dive deep in on this topic because I've had 6 hours worth of thought as I traveled back from Columbia, South Carolina. I've had a lot of time to kind of think through this. I just want to process it a little bit more, and we'll hit it tomorrow on our 10 takeaway show from the weekend. But let's start with the game in Happy Valley, where Penn State falls at the hands of Ohio State 20-13 yet again. Ohio State, we'll start there. They played about, I don't know, guys, what do y'all think? B minus game at best, and still won and played phenomenally on the defensive side en route to victory. I actually came out of this feeling a little bit better about Ohio State, and you're probably thinking, why? Totally a fair question. I will say this. I think Donovan Jackson playing left tackle, which was my biggest concern, thought he held up okay against what I thought was an excellent rush. Now, Denai Dennis-Sutton was not there, but Abdul Carter's going to get his, and he did get his in the game, but he didn't take it over like he could have. So credit to the Ohio State offensive line. But defensively, this is what I wanted to see. I mean, this is the performance that we've been hoping for from Ohio State. Now, how much of it had to do with Penn State? Probably more than you'd like to admit, but still give credit where credit is due. They really allowed 6 points in the game. And they had 2 turnovers in the red zone that they forced. Got to give tremendous credit to that. But the way things started out here, man, it looked like it was going to be Penn State's day. You get opening drive right down the field, massive. I mean, great opening drive. Timely, 6, 7, 8 minutes or whatever, right down the field, mixing run. We're watching Drew Aller use quarterback run. Like, who is this guy and what the heck is wrong with that knee? Because it doesn't look like it's a problem right now. He was maybe the best thing. His legs were one of the best things going for Penn State early in the ball game. But Andy Kotelnicki, with the creativity that he used, I think maybe got a little cute on the 4th down there at the goal line, on the goal line stand. And did think that there were moments where they just got to find a way to get their receivers involved. One thing that I thought was significant in the game, I don't feel like it's been talked about enough, Penn State made critical errors in this game that led to Ohio State winning the football game. One, the unsportsmanlike conduct on number 9 for Penn State, blanking on the name right now. I apologize. But number 9 on Penn State, they get off the field on a 3rd and 10 early. The defense had been playing great at this point. He steps over the Ohio State wide receiver, flag, first down, and guess what Ohio State does? They go right down the field and they score. Like, you give teams like Ohio State new leases on life, you're toast. That was mistake number 1. Mistake number 2, fade in the end zone. Kind of an unlucky bounce and a great play by the Ohio State defensive back. A great play to secure it, drag the toe, get his toe down, and secure the interception. That was an amazing play as well. But Penn State had this game on their racket multiple times and couldn't quite find a way to get the win. Ohio State didn't play well and yet still won. That, I think, is what's most impressive. Think about, Will Howard did a lot of good things in this game. The fumble over the top of the pylon, the interception early, missed a deep throw or two where you have Ohio State wide receivers wide open down the field and he throws them out of bounds. So I thought for Ohio State to play that level of game and win gave me a lot more respect. I'm not going to go down the low-hanging fruit today. We'll hit it tomorrow. But if you're Penn State, I am absolutely furious. I am furious if I'm a Penn State fan. Because there's, if not then when? And that's something we'll hit tomorrow and go in depth on with where Penn State's program's at and what the expectation level should be for this program moving forward. But 3 trips to the red zone, 3 points, the result, interception, 4th down stop is brutal. Absolutely brutal. So that was one ranked team that went down. Another was Texas A&M. Now, a lot of people, I've noticed already, it's like people's narrative on A&M has changed drastically. Because last week they went from becoming the belle of the ball to now they're an overrated football team. Heard some people even refer to them as fraudulent. Like, they're not fraudulent. They're not fraudulent at all. They beat who they were supposed to beat. They lost a game to a good Notre Dame team. They beat a solid, I think, top 20 LSU team at home. They're a good football team. They dominated an overrated Missouri team. But this was a bit of a reversion to the mean. Like, I don't think anyone looked at this A&M team and thought, yep, that's one that could go 11-1, win the national championship. No, they were going to be sound. They were going to be physical, but they were not immune to substandard performances. And that's what they got in this game on Saturday night. But you also have to give credit to South Carolina. The difference in perception between South Carolina and Texas A&M was drastic going into this game. Drastic. But the difference in reality between the two teams, their rosters, their strengths, and their weaknesses really weren't that different. Throw in the home field factor, they're in William Bryce at night, and you almost felt like South Carolina was the better team, and maybe that the wrong team was favored. It's a different team in November the last few years under Shane Beamer. Against Power 4 competition, they were a cool 7-4 in November. You know what they were in August, September, and October against Power 4 competition? They were 6-16. Well, now here in 2024, they are 1-0, which means when you look at it, 6-16, first 3 months of the season, 8-4 in the final few months. And that ended a streak of 9 straight losses by South Carolina to ranked opponents. But this was an impressive performance. It was 530 yards, the way they ran the football. Rocket Sanders had a turn back the clock type of performance, breaking tackles, showing open field speed, and neutralizing a defensive front that had been outstanding at times this year against the run. It was an amazing performance from South Carolina. But I think from A&M, the takeaway is that, my goodness, how many opportunities did they squander? Short yardage, they couldn't convert short yardage. They got stopped on 2 4th-and-1s. They got stopped on another 3rd-and-1, to the point where it's like, this is a team that's prided itself on running the football between the tackles. And you can't even pick up short yardage situations. They also, how many times did they have linebackers or secondary players unblocked with arms wrapped around Lenora Sellers and they couldn't drop them for a sack? That was massive. Missed tackles on the perimeter. people are pointing to, oh, well, this was a trap game for A&M. No, it wasn't a trap game. It's that the gap between South Carolina and A&M is not that drastic. A&M's just played a pretty dang manageable schedule up to this point. South Carolina's run a bit of a gauntlet, and that's what happens. You got a team that's 4-3 and a team that has just one loss, but they're really not that different when you look at the two moving forward. South Carolina's going to be a huge problem for everyone they played on the stretch. This is a team that has steadily improved. They're young at certain positions, and if they can control the line of scrimmage the way they did this weekend, they're going to be in a really good place moving forward. But A&M still a ton to play for. And I think they can get back on track for sure. They still got Auburn. They got the home tilt against Texas, and they're going to have to play well against Texas, but I think they can beat the Longhorns. They have to play really well, though. No denying that. So big bounce back opportunity for A&M in the future. South Carolina, tremendous win. They deserve it. Felt like they exercised a lot of demons last night in the performance. Let's go to Georgia, Florida. Look, Georgia has got to stop turning the football over. I mean, it's getting to the point where it's ridiculous. I mean, it really is. There's just a couple times I'm watching Carson Beck. It's like he's laid over the middle. He's not. I mean, it's like he predetermines sometimes. Hey, I'm throwing it there. Come hell or high water. If he's covered, so be it. I'm gonna try to fit it in there. If I can't, so be it. It also feels like there's miscommunications on some tunnel screens. Like something's going on with their offense. And I just don't know exactly what it is, but I know they better get it figured out quickly, because when we fast forward here down the stretch, you got Tennessee, who's a great defensive football team, and you got Ole Miss this week, who's one of the best teams in the country against the run, and they have a very improved secondary from where they were a year ago. Now, will Ole Miss be able to block them? I don't know, but I know that this Georgia offense, if they're looking for answers, they might be tough to find this week against the Ole Miss Rebels. Hey, still, to turn the ball over like that, to win the game in a rivalry game, got to feel good about it. But would this game have been different potentially had DJ Lagway not gotten hurt? Maybe. I don't know. I don't think we'll ever know the answer to that. But I know a walk-on coming off the bench and going 7 for 22 for 66 yards and a pick was not going to be conducive to a situation where Florida is going to be able to kind of withstand Georgia throughout the rest of the game at that point. So I hate that Lagway got hurt. I do think it had a bit of an impact. But Florida, man, they're in trouble. They're in trouble right now if Lagway can't get back after he was carted off the field. But if Aiden Warner's their answer, they're going to have some problems. You also, had the low snap on the field goal attempt that led to the missed. Next thing you know, Beck goes down, throws a touchdown pass. Just there were missed opportunities from Florida in this game. And you just can't miss those against Georgia. But man, goodness, man, Georgia. You want to talk about Jekyll and Hyde football team. You get Jekyll and Hyde all the time with this team. Let's go back just over the course of the season. Georgia, first quarter against Clemson, not great, right? The first half against Clemson, not good at all. Second half, awesome. First half against Bama, terrible. Second half, really good. 4 quarters against the Texas Longhorns of good, solid defensive football, but the offense wasn't very good that day whatsoever. Against Florida, offense not very good. Defense did a lot of good things. Not great, but a lot of good things. So it's seemingly that if Georgia could ever just put it all together, they're an elite football team. But how many times have we even come close to scratching the surface of consistency with this group this year? I don't know. And it needs to come soon. Guys, it's November. And you got Ole Miss, you got Tennessee, you got potentially the SEC title game. Right now, I'm seeing a lot of this. I want to see more of this. And with Georgia and all the pieces they have, they can play high-level football, man. Seeing this would be a really welcomed sight, I think, for all of us that have been following that program. Speaking of a team that has been a little bit like this, right? Going against a team that's been like this, that's Louisville and Clemson. Now, when you look at the numbers for Clemson offensively, statistically, you look at Louisville giving up that many yards, you'd think, okay, well, Clemson was able to move the ball a lot. And then you look at how many plays were run against Louisville. Louisville had to defend 100-plus plays in this game. They blocked a couple field goals. How about how Louisville was able to run the ball with Ike Brown? He had 20 carries for 151. Now, this game was on at the same time as ours. I got wind of there being some type of issue about whether or not Clemson should have gone for 2, whether there were some coaching mistakes. It's something that we can address tomorrow on tomorrow's show. But this to me was all about Louisville. It also to me was a little bit about Clemson. Were they potentially a bit of a paper tiger? We had talked already about how improved they were offensively. While I agree completely, they looked like a completely different team the last 6 or 7 weeks. But who was it against? I mean, the toughest team that they've faced so far has been Virginia. You can make a case that maybe it was NC State, but that was, starting a guy for the first time in CJ Bailey and a defense that couldn't tackle that day. I mean, it was brutal. So Clemson, did we maybe have some false impressions? Perhaps, because they were able to dominate against really, really average football teams. But we told you we thought Louisville would keep it really close. I thought Clemson would ultimately win. But either way, Louisville, the better team. Louisville's got some firepower now, man. They got weapons. I think Shuck played about as average a game as I would expect him to play in a game like that. I mean, for them to win with him being that average is really encouraging, because now it's not all about the passing attack. The running game's going to get going. And this, to me, this was just a really impressive game from Louisville from start to finish. Never really had any doubt. And to see Clemson fans filing out of the stadium that quickly is significant. Tennessee, on to them. Little too close for comfort, right? But if you look back at it and just kind of watching it, like I said, on at the same time as us there at night, had it on one of the monitors in the booth, but just felt like there was a ton of missed opportunities for Tennessee. This game was closer than it felt. Had not had a couple drops, a couple of situations here and there where Tennessee receivers can reel it in, this thing might have looked totally different. It did look from a distance like Nico was a little more comfortable, a little more decisive, a little more accurate, and had his receivers picked him up a little bit, maybe things would have been a little bit different. One of the best performances of the day was Indiana. They had not trailed all season long. Now we know whether or not this team can bounce back from a possible hole, how they bounce back from adversity. How's scoring 47 straight points after being down 10-0? Is that pretty good? How's 7 sacks? How's 2 picks? How's a blocked punt safety? How's 15 TFLs? How's negative 24 rushing yards allowed? I'd say that's dominant. And while we've talked a lot about Curtis Rourke's availability, the passing attack, how offensively they do a great job in execution, doing a really good job with some of their RPOs, all the stuff they do offensively, it's been fun to watch. But defense now, I believe this is 3 weeks in a row where the defense is taking it to the next level. And maybe it was against substandard competition, something we're going to address on Monday edition of Always College Football. We're going to talk about Indiana and how they should be evaluated right now, because if we're going off game control, we're going off eye test, we're going off execution, and we're going off personnel, they're pretty sporty, man. I mean, they are really good. The record reflects that, but there is just a little bit of wonder for me after seeing Nebraska lose again. There's a little bit of a wonder about, okay, who is it that they're beating up on? And it's something that we might have to acknowledge here at some point very soon, because we took the bait and we took the cheese on Clemson, and we found out quickly that when the level of competition increased, Clemson's performance decreased. Will that happen with Indiana? We'll find out rather soon. Michigan this week, Ohio State the week after that. So a lot to look forward to with the Hoosiers here the next couple weeks. The Oregon Ducks lose Tez Johnson, which I hate, by the way. Does sound like with the shoulder injury, there's a possibility he's going to be back. I'm not sure any of us know exactly how soon that's going to be, but it was nice to see Trayshawn Holden step into that increased role. Got a career-high performance with 6 catches and 149 receiving yards. So to see a guy go down and the next man up mentality for Trayshawn Holden to go in and for the offense not to skip a beat has to give you a lot of pride as an Oregon fan. It's got to fire you up drastically, because that is not something, when you lose a number one guy like that, that's not something that's easily overcome. But Dylan Gabriel's been outstanding, guys. I mean, he has been really good all season long. Another great performance here, 22 of 34, 294, touchdown. Had a nice run up the middle on the touchdown run as well. Gave him a nice, comfortable, near 3 touchdown lead at half. So he is the straw that stirs the drink. When you're 10 of 15 on third down and you're able to kind of sustain drives like that, it's going to be really hard to stop the Oregon Ducks. And I think we'll talk about this tomorrow. I think we now have established that there is a bit of a gap between Oregon and everybody else right now in the sport. Nebraska, probably the worst loss of the day. And I don't like to rank losses, but my goodness. I mean, for them to lose to UCLA, they've now lost 3 in a row. This is a team that just a moment ago was 5-1. They're now 5-4. This game really wasn't even as close as the final score would indicate. I mean, Nebraska needed some points late to make it look somewhat respectable in the losing effort. Raiola goes down with a back injury, and now you look forward, and what a couple weeks ago was a guaranteed bowl game is not looking like the postseason is a guarantee anymore with how things might finish up. You got USC, Wisconsin, and Iowa remaining on the schedule, and Nebraska needs to win one of those 3 to get to the postseason. And I just don't know at the moment if that is a foregone conclusion. And then finally, Virginia Tech. Not to have Tootin, not to have Drones, had a chance to lose in overtime to Syracuse, which was a bummer because I was hoping that Clemson and Virginia Tech next week would have that Virginia Tech is back type of feel, right? It felt like we were trending in that direction. Like Virginia Tech is back. In comes a top 10 ranked Clemson team. You're going to have absolute chaos in the pregame. The run out's going to be electric, and Clemson and Virginia Tech lose, which further complicates the playoff picture. If you're an ACC fan and you want to get 2 teams in, it might be tough sledding from this point forward. Now, check back with us tomorrow. There is a possibility that we did not talk about your team, and there is a possibility that we talked about your team, but it wasn't very long. That's the beauty of Monday's show. We'll do our 10 biggest takeaways from the college football weekend. We'll do some rankings. We're going to talk a little bit about contenders or pretenders. We're going to talk about teams that have punched their ticket to bowl eligibility. And we're going to try to separate the haves from the have-nots. How does that sound for a Monday edition of Always College Football? Appreciate you being here. Check back with us again tomorrow. And once again, I apologize for getting this to you so late today. We would love to have gotten it to you earlier, but dang, Delta and weather made it very difficult. But we're here no matter what. We're going to dive in now, learn a little more about what went down by watching some tape. Check back with us tomorrow on our 10 Takeaways Monday edition of ACF. For all of us here at ACF, for Mark, Jake, Jack, the other Jack, I'm Greg. We hope you have an awesome day. And remember, it's always college football. Hey guys, it's Greg McElroy. Thanks for watching Always College Football. Make sure you like, rate, and subscribe to ESPN's YouTube channel and wherever you listen to your podcasts.